Hi friends, welcome to this tutorial for the bead stitch crochet baby blanket. This is a pretty easy baby blanket pattern to work up. It's very easy to memorize with great texture and really fun colors, I think. And it's fairly beginner friendly if you have a basic knowledge of crochet to start with. So what you are going to need for today's tutorial is some worsted weight acrylic yarn. I used Universal Yarn Uptown Worsted in the pattern. I will be demonstrating with Hobby Lobby's I Love This Yarn in similar colors just because I'm out of the Universal Yarn and I have Hobby Lobby's in my stash. You're also going to need a 5mm crochet hook, which is also an H8, and then you're going to need some scissors, stitch markers, and a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends. Let's get started. All right, I'm going to begin with this kind of variegated pink and white and yellow yarn. I'll make the slip knot. And then for the pattern, which you can get the full pattern for free on my blog, dananeild.com. It is linked in the description as well. You can chain any odd number to start. So I'm going to chain 13 for this tutorial. Let's see where I'm at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right. Row 1 of the pattern, you are going to half double crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain across. So to half double crochet and working into the starting chain, I like to work into the back bumps. So if you have your V's facing you, turn the work towards yourself and you can see these back bumps. Working into the back bumps gives you a really clean edge to your project, and it makes it a lot easier for working the border later. So the first bump is kind of hidden back here. We're going to go into the second bump from the hook. Yarn over, so wrap the yarn over the hook. Insert in that second bump and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. There's your first half double crochet. Now we're going to do that in every back bump across. So yarn over, insert your hook into that back bump, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. All right, away we go. Chain 1 and turn. Now, the second row is our first row featuring the bead stitch. We are going to work a double crochet in the first chain from the hook. So similar to the half double, yarn over, insert your hook. You're going to go under both loops of the stitch. This is standard. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2. Yarn over and pull through the last 2. So there's your first double crochet. Now we're going to work a double crochet in the next stitch, and this will be the foundation for the bead stitch. I'll explain what that means in a second. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now, the bead stitch is worked backwards over this post we've just created. After completing a double crochet, you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop around the double crochet just worked, like so. Envision you're doing a front post double crochet or a front post stitch around this stitch. So insert your hook and place it around that post, bringing it forward towards you. Yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, insert your hook back around that double crochet and pull up a loop. You will have 5 loops on your hook. We're going to do that one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook around that post, pull up that loop. You will have 7 loops. All right, you'll yarn over and pull through the first 6, then yarn over and pull through the last 2. And that gives you your first bead stitch. All right, let's do that again. So you're going to skip this stitch that we worked, that's beneath the bead that we just worked, and work a double crochet into the next stitch. Let's do another bead stitch. So once again, yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. 5 loops on your hook, yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. 7 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through just the first 6, yarn over and pull through the last 2. We're already starting to see that great texture coming through. Okay, and you're going to just do that across until there's 1 stitch left in the row. In the last stitch of the row, simply work a double crochet. And there is a completed row of the bead stitches. Chain 1 and turn. Row 3, we're just going to half double crochet across. Now we are going to change colors. So let's bring in the next color. I think I'm going to bring in this fun kind of speckly red. To join the new color, all you do is loop the yarn over the hook, leaving a long, at least 6-inch tail to weave in later, and pull through. Then snug up that yarn that we left behind, and it looks almost perfectly seamless, that transition, which is really cool. Chain 1 and turn. The rest of the pattern is a repeat, more or less, of rows 1 through 3. So half double crochet, bead, half double crochet. So let's go ahead and half double crochet across. And then that last stitch might look a little small, so just be cognizant of that. If you're ever nervous that you might drop a stitch and then end up with a narrowing project, you can place a stitch marker on the first and last stitches of the row. Or you could count every row, but that sounds horrible to me. I would much rather do the stitch marker trick, and then you know exactly where the end of your row is. All right, let's do another bead stitch row together. This is a darker yarn, but hopefully it'll still show up okay on camera. So that first row, or the first stitch, excuse me, is just a double crochet. And then the next stitch is also a double crochet, and this one is the one that will work a bead stitch around. So once again, you'll yarn over, insert your hook, and pull up a loop. 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, insert your hook around the post, pull up a loop. 5 loops on the hook. Yarn over, insert that hook around the post, pull up a loop. 7 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 6. Yarn over and pull through the last 2. We're going to skip the stitch that's underneath the bead and then double crochet in the next one. And work that across. Double crochet bead, skip 1 stitch until you get to the last stitch of the row. And then in that last stitch, work a double crochet. Chain 1 and turn, and half double crochet across. Let's bring in our next color. To join our third and final color, we'll do it in the same way as the second color. So loop the yarn over your hook, leaving a long tail. Pull through. Tighten up the yarn you just left behind. Chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to be just repeating the same thing again, so half double crochet, bead stitch, half double crochet. I'm going to work that section up in this pink, and then I'll show you how to carry the yarn up, so when we resume with our color A, you won't have any ends to weave in. So I'll meet you soon. I just love how pretty these colors look together. But I just finished this pink section, and now we can bring back our, well, I think this color was ballet slipper, possibly. But anyway, this nice soft variegated color. And in order to join it, since we didn't cut the ends there, you're going to bring that all the way up and loop it over the hook, just like we're looping a new ball of yarn, but it's still attached. And pull through. Tighten up the stitch you left behind, and then all you want to do is maybe give this a little tug. Make sure this float isn't too tight, because if it's too tight, then your work will bunch up a bit, and that can't really be fixed. And so we'd rather have our floats be a little too loose, because they'll get hidden later by the border, than too tight where our project bunches up. All right, and then you'll just chain 1 and turn. And you can continue in the pattern as written. So I'm going to do one more section in this color, and then we will talk about the border. All right, so this is a nice size swatch for us to move on to the border, but before we do that, I just wanted to show one more time, if we were continuing in pattern, we would be bringing up our next color, so that's this dark color, looping it over the hook, pull through, and snugging up that color left behind, extending this so the float is not too tight. And then throughout your project, you should have these long floats going up and down both sides. Now we're not going to have that on this swatch. There isn't a float on this side, just on this one, because we're going to stop here to work on our border. So at this point, what you're going to do is cut off all the ends and weave them in now. There shouldn't be too many because we carried our ends up the sides. I've woven in all my ends, so on this swatch there's just the one float left. If you are working a larger project, like the baby blanket, you'll have floats on each side. To begin our border, I'm using a color that is neither the first or last row, so that's a recommendation. If you choose your own colors for the project, don't make your border color the same as the beginning or end of the project, because then it'll contrast so much more nicely. So I'm using this pink, and in the upper right corner, insert your hook under both loops. Pull up a loop of yarn in your border color, chain 1 to attach. Now we are going to work 2 single crochets in the same stitch. And I am going to put a stitch marker in that very first single crochet, because that is going to be the corner stitch. Then simply single crochet across. So I like to begin all of my blanket borders with a round of single crochet, because it's just that much easier to work into those stitches for the subsequent rounds. And I always like to begin in that upper right hand corner and keep the seam in the corner, because then I never forget where my seam is supposed to be, where the beginning and end of each joined round should be. Now in the last stitch at the top there, place 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and put a stitch marker in the middle single crochet. As you work along the sides in this project, aim to place about 3 single crochets for every 2 row ends, excluding the marked corners. So let's pretend, well, not pretend, let's say this is the first single crochet. So then we'll do, say, a second single crochet and a third single crochet in, so we've got 3 single crochets across these 2 rows, if that makes sense. And that math should give you a border that lies flat. Now, as we approach this float and any other floats, you are going to want to work your stitches, making sure you enclose the floats. That's so that we can hide them. Don't ever work your single crochets just around a float, because that's just not very secure and you'll have a big hole. And also, as you're working your single crochets, you're going to want to not split the yarn, but split the stitches. So you can see I'm pulling up 1 or 2 loops in the yarn as I work. And that way it should give us a secure space to work our stitch into. But also, I'll show you, we don't want to work around a whole stitch, because if I go down here and pull up a loop in there, not only is that a little unsightly because it goes down so far, but it helps produce a bigger hole. And we don't want that. We want a neater finish. Well, our final stitch of this side here is going to go into the first stitch in the bottom. So the corners in this round are worked into the top or bottom, so that's a little easier to keep track of. So again, in the corner, work 3 single crochets, placing a marker in the second single crochet. As you work along the bottom, it should look awfully similar to working into the top of stitches, because we had worked into that back bump. And the joy of working into the back bump is that it gives you that neat edge so that it's really easy to see where to place your stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and continue around. Of course, in the corner, do your 3 single crochets. I'll meet you back over here. Here I have 1 stitch left in the round to work. Your final stitch should be placed in the same corner as the first 2 single crochets of the round. That completes that corner. It gives us our 3rd single crochet for that corner. Working 2 single crochet in the starting corner and at the start of the round, and then finishing with that 3rd one keeps our seam in the corner. Then we will slip stitch join to that first stitch in the round. That's a pretty flat, smooth border. Look even smoother with some light blocking or just on a larger project even. All right, let's move on to round 2. Chain 1, and then we're going to work 2 herringbone half double crochets in this corner that's still marked. So in order to work a herringbone half double crochet, it's just a slight variation on an ordinary half double crochet. You'll yarn over and insert your hook and pull up a loop just like you would with a normal half double crochet. But the difference is we're going to continue to pull through that next loop on the hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. Let's do that again. And in the same stitch, this is our corner, so 2 in the first stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, continue. Oh boy, I lost it. All right, let's try again. Pull up that loop, continue to pull that loop through, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. Let's move our marker up now to the first herringbone half double crochet we just made. That'll be our corner in this round. And then you will herringbone half double crochet across. Let's do another one. Yarn over, insert your hook under the stitch, pull up a loop, continue pulling through, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. What that does is it pushes this loop down a bit to give you some really nice texture. It does take a little getting used to, especially because we've been doing ordinary half double crochets for the majority of the blanket. But I think the results are very worth it. I think it just produces a gorgeous border. It's also a very neutral border. I know we're using a lot of pinks in this blanket, but if you were giving the blanket to somebody who, like a mom who's not finding out the gender, or they're having a boy and you would like to use some more traditionally masculine colors for a little boy, then I think this pattern still works so nicely because the border isn't particularly frilly or lacy. It's a really nice neutral border to put on your projects. Okay, we're approaching the corner. This time I'm going to remove that marker and put it back in the project later. Work your first herringbone half double crochet in the corner, and a second one, and a third. All right, move that marker back to the second herringbone half double crochet we just made in that corner and continue around, working your 3 herringbones in the corners. I will go ahead and meet you at the start. here we are with just one stitch left in the round. And once again, we're going to find where we worked into the corner for those first 2 herringbones of the round and work our final herringbone of the round in that same stitch. If you're ever confused about exactly where the last stitch of the round is, I get confused too. And so sometimes I even like to mark that last stitch from the previous round as well, so that I know, okay, this is the last stitch to work into before completing the corner for the next round. So I hope that's a helpful tip. Then all you're going to do is slip, stitch, join. And there is our first round of that beautiful textural herringbone half double crochet. For the rest of the pattern, rounds 3 through 6 are just a repeat of round 2. After that, you can cut your yarn, fasten off, and weave in your remaining ends. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you are interested in more tutorials for memorizable crochet baby blanket patterns, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, and then you would get notified when I have new patterns, new video tutorials coming out. You can also subscribe to my email newsletter at dananeal.com/subscribe, and then you'd get emails when I have new patterns and new video tutorials as well. All right, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and happy crocheting.